Captain, we have them! We've established Transporter Lock, the Star Trek podcast. Join Ken and Sabriel each week as they explore strange new episodes, seek out new plots and new characters, and boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock. I am Captain Sabriel Maston, sipping on my 7 of limes, enjoying life. And as always, I'm joined by my chief engineer.
Hey, Captain Sabriel, it's Ken Gagney here. Happy to be discussing 2 more episodes of Star Trek Discovery, which makes this, the penultimate podcast episode of all of Discovery?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Erigah, not Ega, Erigah.
Ega being Mystery Science Theater, of course.
Of course. I mean, who doesn't know that? Erigah and Labyrinths. Was pretty Star Trek based this week. One thing I remember most is just seeing there was some interviews or whatever. But the one that I remember is someone interviewed Tig Notaro, and she mentioned she got the name rename Jet Reno to be Jet Reno because they want to name her Denise.
After Denise Crosby?
No, I don't know about that part. They just said her name is Denise Reno, and Tig was like, no. And they actually let her rename to be Jet.
That's awesome.
Like, this feels like a jet.
Jet is also the name of the main character in the computer game Tron 2.0, that being the son of the main character from Tron.
Nice.
Yep.
I think she mentioned she was going for a little bit of a nod to Joan Jett.
That makes sense.
Yep. That's just the only bit of Star Trek news I really read this week, or last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I haven't heard a start date for Strange New Worlds Season 3, Lower Decks Season 5, of production date start for Starfleet Academy, or for the Section 31 movie. These are all unknowns at the moment.
Nada. So this was I've been watching Star Trek Discovery. Season 3, continuing on that. That's my news.
I've been watching Star Trek Next Generation because over the last 8 years, I've been doing a rewatch with my mom. And we got 2 episodes in the last 2 months. The first was The Game with Ashley Judd. And the second was Power Play, where O'Brien, Data, and Troy become possessed and take over 10 Forward in a hostage situation.
You may now deliver the baby.
No, that's not that episode.
Oh, that's not episode? It's right. It's right. She kept crying. That's what it was.
That's right. O'Brien comes up and is like, I know you. I know who you are. And I know what this is. I'm like, yeah, it's a baby. Come on. Yeah, my mom loved Power Play. She thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. There were some minor details that I'd forgotten over the years. Nothing too important. Season 5 of Next Generation was possibly the best season. I'm presenting my mom with a curated experience where I skip the episodes that are either bad or irrelevant. And if you look at a bell curve of which seasons we're watching the most episodes of, Season 5 has the most. We're skipping the fewest in Season 5.
Makes sense. 5 was a really good one. I think that is the episode. If I recall correctly, they all get beams of light, the balls of light that go into them, and they fly back early on. Murina sort of did her own stunt and hurt herself doing it.
Oh no, what happened?
Something when they fly back, hurt her back really bad.
Oh, poor Marina.
So I don't think she did her own stunts again after that.
Which is ironic because in the opening episode, the opening scene, the only person on the away team who's not possessed is Riker because he broke his arm and his pain receptors drove off the spark. So apparently it should have happened to Troy.
Well, Troy didn't get hurt. Marina did.
I know. That's funny, though. This also reminds me that Jonathan Frakes and LeVar Burton were just at the Star Trek set replica in Ticonderoga, New York this past week.
Yeah, one of our friends was there and got to meet them.
Yeah, we got some photos from former guest of the show, the Punder Woman, Jessica Janik, was there in her Starfleet red garb from TOS. And she said she said that Frakes and Burton were lovelier and nicer than she ever expected they would be, which I would agree with, having met them myself, but there's always that don't meet your heroes thing. Mm-hmm. And some people do end up being jerks. I've only had that happen like maybe once or twice out of the dozens of people I've met. But yeah, everybody from TNG is just lovely.
Just an angel. That's all I hear.
Yeah. Well, Patrick Stewart does better with crowds than with individuals, in my experience, and from what I've heard. But everybody else is just awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah,
All right. Should we talk about Star Trek Discovery?
we shall.
All right. Erigah.
Erigah.
Erigah. All
Erigah.
right. The episode before, we knew that Locke and Maul had escaped from a Terran warp pod, which is a new thing that was invented. And here we immediately follow up with that they are now in custody after announcing their location with an SOS, hoping a courier will pick them up before the Federation. That did not happen. The Federation picked them up, but yeah.
Yep. So they are now medical prisoners of the Discovery, and they clearly didn't get too far, or their escape from the Terran Enterprise wasn't very effective.
We knew it was basically going to happen. They're in an 800-year-old warp pod. They were just hoping someone else would get them first.
I'm glad that this is one of the few times that I think it's been realistic, because they always seem to have a bag of tricks up their sleeve, like, oh, we'll shoot off all these alternative warp signatures, and oh, we'll blow these tunnels and make a landslide, destroy the town, and this and that. But no, when you're in an 800-year-old warp pod that isn't your own, your options are limited.
Uh-huh. We can find out that Locke is severely injured, not just very injured.
Yeah, and that's from accidentally getting stabbed by Burnham, right?
Yeah. He's a little power. He's doing a little cool jump. It's like sick jump, like
Yep.
Jedi sick jump, and then gets stabbed by accident.
Sick flips.
Yep, the sick flip. That's what it was. And beat aboard Discovery. They're like, USS Federation's like, hey, bring them back here. And I guess they're like, no, you're not going to bring them back here. You're going to keep them on Discovery for the plot. No, keep them on Discovery because the Breen are coming. And Vance is like, hey, we want you to just take them and jump away if we're going to pretend that we don't have them. It's like, no, they're not going to fall for that. And says we're going to stay here.
Do you think that was the right call?
Oh yeah, she was 100% correct. She's like, yeah, we need to just get this in the face. I mean, they kept saying we could jump and jump, and the Breen will always chase them. Like, dude, you can jump across the galaxy. I mean, and they could do that. That's not going to work. Breen will just like, okay, we'll make them come to us. I mean, so it wasn't going to work.
But just like in Labyrinth, the Breen could have attacked something or someone else to force Discovery's hand. So I think it was wise for them to stick around.
It wouldn't have worked. Commander Nan is back guarding our injured Locke.
It's always a joy to see her. I enjoy her.
I like her too. And then she's here getting the What For to book. It's like, last time I saw you, you were firing torpedoes on us. I don't trust you. I don't know why Book really, really, really wants to go in there and talk to Maul. He thinks he can do anything he wants. And they're like, nope.
Yeah, and that's why she went easy on him. I like that part.
Let's see.
So I have a lot of questions about the Breen.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but at one point, I think it was Locke or Maul, but probably Locke, who said, you would be mistaken to believe that they think anything like you. They don't. Do not try and negotiate with them. And in what I've seen in the last 2 episodes with the Breen, they think exactly like us. Like they've done nothing that I would truly describe as alien, like incomprehensible, unpredictable. No, like they do angry things, they do stupid things, they do manipulative things. They're exactly like humans. There's nothing surprising here.
Primarch Rune, I saw it best, is basically the villain with the mustache twirling. He is so one note.
Yeah. And as we'll get into when we discuss Labyrinth, he's so bad at his job.
Yeah.
I mean, these, dictators think that they can do whatever they want without repercussions, and that nobody around them can touch them. And that is not true at all. If you don't take care of the people around you, they will revolt.
The Primarch Rune was written terribly, I think, in my opinion. The Breen were scary because they have a very big ship, which was really cool coming in.
I agree with that.
Terrifying.
Yes.
No, we got to see a very one-note human, or a very human acting villain, much like Dick Dastardly or
Hey,
Uh,
in Star Trek Lower Decks, when they were trying to break through the force field that Nick Lorcano had put up around his little bubble of space, do you remember what kind of warship they drove into the force
Orion.
field? It was Orion?
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. It was Orion because they got it from Tendy's family. That's right. Because I feel like that's the last time we saw a warship of that size.
it was huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't the Orion and the Breen, aren't they like, isn't that the Emerald Chain?
I don't recall the Breen being a part. I think the Breen were all their own thing, or at
Let me
least they
see.
were. They were. Yeah, I don't remember the specifics though. They
Here,
haven't come up yet in my rewatch of Discovery in 4 episodes.
okay. I just checked. The Emerald Chain was a syndicate of Orions and Andorians.
I almost
Not
said Andorian. I should have gone with my guns.
take be bold, Sabriel, be bold.
The backup people. Michael's starting to figure out like, hey, the Breen are coming here instead of just sending a very nasty voicemail. Michael's like, they must need these two for some reason, or one of them. And she goes talks to them and figures out because Maul's like, I'm not gonna leave Locke. I was talking to them. She's like, don't tell her anything. And Locke is like, if she figures it out, like, oh, you have an Erigah on it because you must be royalty or something very important to the royal family or something like that.
I don't know. I don't understand how Breen royalty works. I mean, so he is the prince.
Yeah,
Is that
he's a
right?
prince. Basically, if I recall correctly, exactly, he is the prince to the former emperor or leader, whatever title he has. That's the relevant part. The leader. He died, and now there are 6 factions vying for it. And Primarch Rune has control of the prince. Has who has a legitimate claim to the throne. Um, but the Primarch wants it, so he just keeps the prince handy, claiming the Primarch claims that he has the right to the throne because he has the prince on his side.
But
Uh,
that's what kind of weirds me out is why isn't the crown going directly to Locke?
because because for some reason, um, okay, here, my favorite D&D setting ever on. Uh, the person who has the strongest claim to the throne is not empowered. All the other countries want it to. There's just a power vacuum. That means Locke did not have any kind of army or standing to take control himself, and that and words are coming to me, and this is a law system where basically it is not lawful, or it is not lawful to society. They don't follow the rules just because this is the way it is. They have their own set of rules. Like a lot of royalty, like this is the way it is. This is the way it always has been. So therefore, Locke is the leader. This group of people do not necessarily follow those laws. Um, and it's just chaos. Chaos. That's the word I'm looking for. Um,
But there are rules. I mean, there is a reason why they want Locke, and there is an expectation by them that whoever has Locke will become the leader, and the other factions will fall in line with that.
but for some reason, they're not following that, and they all just want the throne themselves. They basically they're like, okay, well that's nice that you have the prince on your side, but I want to be the leader.
But that's why they wanted him, and they never got him. He died.
Uh-huh. Plan failed.
Yeah, but
The Ruin thought he had the best chance of becoming leader because he had the prince, quote unquote, on his side.
and would the other factions have respected that?
Well, apparently some of them did, but not all of them.
Hmm. Still very strange to me.
It is not a very orderly system of government. There's no scimitars being lobbed. There are no. Apparently, their constitution is not very, or whatever they have, is not very.
Well, I don't
Uh,
think it's just that. I think it's that the writers didn't take the time to explain how Breen government works, or they did it so quickly that you and I missed it.
I just didn't really question it, to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me why like usually I mean there have been plenty of fantasy novels where the prince goes into hiding because he doesn't want to be the king. Like look at the Lion King, for example, you know? But as soon as the prince reveals himself to be alive and the descendant of the king, everybody says, "Oh, you're the rightful heir to the throne. You need to reclaim the throne. You need to get your evil uncle off the throne, Hamlet." And in this case, they're like, no, if you're the prince, then whoever owns you is the king. Like that's weird to me.
Or I don't know how much I can better describe. It is not a very good system of government. I can guarantee that, but I don't know how much I can really flesh this out in a Star Trek podcast in an hour long.
All right, let's keep moving then.
Um, so I mean, I think if it's not clear though, clearly there's something wrong going on. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. Yep.
That will add to something I started to say earlier. Why be watching season 3? Adira is a joined trill. Writers kind of forgot about that. That was what I was going to mention. Like, hey, did you know Adira is a joined trill? I know I forgot. And never comes up. And there are still failings, even though this is probably one of my favorite seasons of Discovery so far. There are definitely some failings. 100% agree.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. While the Primarch is on his way, Stamets and Tilly are working on the puzzle. Tilly was going to go back to the Federation HQ to take care of her students, and Stamets is like, no, we still got to figure out this clue, even if that other plot is going on. And they do, and they figure out it's a library card, a Betazoid library card, which is very fun because, of course, it's telepathic. And they're trying to figure out where that is. But they find out like, we need to talk to someone who knows about books, and the computer tells them you should talk to Reno. I'm like, yay, more Commander Reno. And I love this bit where Reno is talking about how she fibbed on her, or she stretched the truth on her resume a bit on her experience. We get all like, she was a VIP person who drove them around. She was a book smuggler. She was bartender. And she talks about the great drink, or her drink, the Seven of Limes, which someone already made a drink that would fit under that on the internet, like the day of or night of. Someone already made a mixed drink with Seven of Limes, which is great. I love Jet Reno, and anytime she is on there.
Yeah, the Seven of Limes, for those who are wondering, is 4 lime wedges, 3 ounces of gin, 1 ounce of Seagram's 7 Crown whiskey, 1 ounce of triple sec, 1 ounce of fresh lime juice, 2 teaspoons of sugar, plus extra for rimming, splash of lemon or lime soda, and a fresh lime twist, and lime wedges for garnish. Sorry, lime zest and lime twist. Now, I do have to call into question, however, the timeline for this, because most of Jet Reno's career was in the Kirk era, which predates 7 of 9 by a century or two. So did she invent this drink and just happen to call it 7 of Limes, or was she tending bar in the 31st century, during which time she learned about this emancipated Borg, who is now in her past?
I assumed it was more the second, but who I know, no idea if she knows who 7 of 9 is, but she knows the drink.
Yeah, when would she have found time to bartend?
Like, well, she says she has a side bit. We don't see her most of the time.
It's true. She's not in every episode.
And she has a shift at night, so we could have seen her tonight, but they cut out before we could do that. Actually, we haven't had that time yet. She probably hasn't even had her shift yet because they're busy with the next episode before she's even gotten to her shift. But I love Jet Reno. I love all these side jobs. And I was talking with a friend, and we're kind of like, I wish we had more Jet Reno, but maybe if she was on more, she wouldn't be as cool. So I'm glad we get what we get.
Kind of like Silent Bob. When he speaks, people listen because he rarely speaks. Also, I just realized 7 of Limes only has 4 lime wedges. Shouldn't it be called the 4 of Limes?
It depends on, but there's also lime flavorings.
I suppose. Leave it to
limes.
Well, she just said that she likes to stretch the truth, so why not stretch the name of her drinks?
The end of the scene led us to the really cool reveal of the massive green ship as the shadow looms over the overhead windows that they're on Discovery. That was such a cool shot.
Yeah, it really puts into context the size of it. Like, Star Trek ships, Starfleet ships are big by most estimates, but then you put it next to a alien warship, it's really not that big.
It basically dwarfs Federation HQ, which is a massive building.
Right. I mean, if you want to talk about big compared to a Starfleet vessel, like a Borg cube is huge. And this, I think, was even bigger.
Or if not, I guess I don't know the scale, but it's huge, freaking huge. We learned a bit more about Raynor. He's very much like uh he tells this little backstory that apparently everyone probably should have known. Like Calibrune was taken over by the Breen. He lost his family, but he chose this moment to reveal this, and not like no one had read his file, or Michael had read up on his history, but not on Calibrine's. I don't. It was weird, but
That
it worked.
exact point is in my notes for this episode. Like, you chose somebody to be your number one without reading their file. I'm like, in All Good Things, the TNG finale, Picard says something to O'Brien about ships and bottles, and O'Brien's like, "How did you know I played with ships and bottles?" And Picard's like, "Oh, I read it in your file." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, obviously you didn't, but O'Brien bought it, so that must be in his file somewhere, and it's reasonable to believe that somebody would read it." Kind of like Raynor, when he was doing those, "You have 20 words to impress me," he'd already read everybody's files. He's like, "Tell me something that's not in your file." He read everybody's files, and the captain isn't doing that.
Maybe it was a really long one, and it just glossed over a bunch.
This is some pretty foundational stuff, though.
Yeah, Breen captured a planet, lost family, blah blah. Oh, hey, look, he likes video games.
Ships and bottles.
We don't have President Cyrillic, but we have President Serena here, no Saru, sadly, who negotiates with the Breen. Which here's where we kind of fall into the Breen are just like humans, but with masks on. But it does show Tarina being pretty cool. She understands Breen somehow. So someone tries to translate, and she's like, "That's not what he said." Remember, that's the idea of what he said, but that's not what he said. And the whole time they're like, negotiate. I still don't know if she was bluffing about this other faction saying, like, I think she was bluffing, but this other faction saying, "Hey, we told them we have the prince, and they want him." Kind of thing. And he's like, I don't know. And he kind of falls for it. I don't know. Was she bluffing? I think she was, but I'm not 100% sure.
It was weird because what seemed to convince him, the Primarch, was Raynor coming out and saying, "Oh, let me tell you all these things about this woman from when she destroyed my homeworld 40 years ago." I'm like, all of that can be true without you having contacted them today to offer them a trade. Like, yeah, it didn't seem very convincing to me, but he bought it. I, for what it's worth, thought it was a bluff.
Yeah, so did I. So but I just couldn't quite tell. Vulcans are very good at exaggerating the truth.
This is true. How was it that Spock justified the times he lied? Because he did lie.
Exaggerating, wasn't it?
That's what he called it?
I think so.
Okay. Spock has not yet learned to exaggerate in Strange New Worlds. I remember when Pelia said, "Why would you want to pretend that your warp vents are exploding or whatever?" And Spock's just like, uh.
And they're like, okay, the Breen are like, okay, you can keep him. And Tarina's like, and don't worry, they'll come under no harm under our protection. And meanwhile,
then Nan chimes in and says, like, I gotta talk to you in sickbay.
as Locke is overdosed on painkillers while Maul gets away. This normally I say how things are like, yeah, they got away because plot required it. This time, for whatever reason, I haven't been able to pin down exactly. It annoyed the heck out of me that they got away. When we had Lon here, like, these people would be under maximum security force fields, and we have Nan there, and they still get away like it was any red shirt on security duty. And for whatever reason, this time it just annoyed me.
So this scene also annoyed me for a different reason. Well, let me start with a question, and then I'll tell you what really annoyed me. The question is, the Breen Primarch and his crew are brought right into sickbay. They are face to face with Locke and Maul. Why can't they beam them onto their warship? Why can't they kidnap or abscond with their targets?
Because they could have.
But they didn't. They're like, "We want him transported to us. You have 1 hour." And then they just beam away. And I was like, there must be some sort of a transport technology that you have to be coded to the right signal or whatever. And this feels like another thing that they haven't explained very well.
I could also I could say that Primarch Rune has some sort of honor. We've clearly seen that's not true. I made this deal, and so I'm going to honor it. We just saw in the next episode, he doesn't honor that at all.
Right. Right. So it's not that he's choosing not to transport them. It's that for some reason he can't. And I don't think it's been made clear why he can't.
I don't know if it is even that, or he's just so one note. He wasn't thinking about any other notes, and he didn't think to beam him back. And again, showing his one noteness, he could easily take it over. He could just do the sarcophagus ship thing and just drive right through the Federation headquarters. It's all I kept picturing. It's just like the Klingons did with their sarcophagus ship, the ship cleaver thing. Like he could have done that with his warship so easily. And he didn't. I mean, thankfully he didn't, but gives him 5 minutes. They're like, okay, turn her over. She doesn't know what we know. Book isn't happy about that. Or it has no ramifications beyond a few minutes in the next episode. Did you have any thoughts on we kind of talked about his one noteness rune here. Federation's right, like might as well turn her over.
Well, I do want to fulfill my promise to tell you what really upset me about that scene.
Yeah.
Locke killed himself by accident. That was stupid.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we have been underscored the entire season about how important these two characters are to each other and how much they love each other and how one doesn't leave without the other. And if anything happens to him, you're going to pay him, blah, blah, blah. And then Locke pulls an oopsie and does it to himself.
Yeah.
I mean, really? I mean, I'm sure it's happened before, but I can't think of any other times in Star Trek history where a character accidentally killed himself. And I'm not talking about taking a chance. Star Trek. I told you, I just saw the episode Power Play, and it opens with O'Brien beaming down to the planet to save his 3 friends who just crashed in a shuttle. And he says, there's only a 50-50 chance that I'm going to be able to beam through this alive. And Picard says, O'Brien, you're aware of the risks? And he says, I am, sir. And so he does it. And just like that, a major character has a 50-50 chance of dying. And he has a wife and a baby. And he's just like, yup, let's do it. And he goes, and it works out fine. If he had died, that would not have been an accident. But like here, Locke just overdoses in an attempt to let Lal or Maul or whatever her name is escape. And he just gives himself too much and he's dead. That's stupid.
Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, they killed themselves thinking that they weren't aware of all the information available to them. But they still killed themselves. I'm not saying it's
100% direct parallel, but that's like the closest thing I got. Because I can't think of any other media where
I can. There's one other example of this that I can think of, and I don't want to mention the exact series in case it's a spoiler for anybody.
If it's been over 2 weeks, they would have watched it.
It's been a decade or two.
Oh, if they haven't watched it in a decade, that's on them.
Okay, it's the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Uh-huh.
A major character dies, and he does so without any fanfare. Just like pop, dead. Just gets shot. He's not trying to save somebody. There's no positive ramifications to his death. He's just boom, gone. Well, you know what? Terminator is a time travel series. And a few episodes later, a version of him is back. And that explains to me why he died so carelessly, is because they knew that the consequences would be short-lived. And so that's why I think that Maul's intention to use progenitor technology to bring Locke back to life is going to be successful.
At least partially. Temporarily.
Because he died so stupidly. If he had died well, he would deserve to stay dead. He would have an honorable death like a Klingon. But no, when you die stupidly, you get a do-over.
You are starting to see the critical analysis here. You were 100% correct. He is going to be coming back.
Do you know that?
Nope, but I know it. Because the exact same thing you just said.
Yep.
And they keep telling us he's coming back. He is going to either come back fully or partially. or fully and partial, or completely back to normal, but temporarily. Unless there's some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, he earns it. It's going to be temporary, I'm sure. Unless they earn it story-wise the next 2 episodes, it's only going to be a temporary resurrection, I'm guessing.
So you think he'll die a second time, but he'll die well?
Well, if he comes back and they don't do some kind of way to, what's the word when someone goes through jail and they earn,
Good behavior?
well, yeah, there's an R word, reclamation, retention,
Rehabilitation?
rehabilitated. Yeah, unless there's some kind of rehabilitation where he earns it, he's gonna die again. That's what's gonna happen. I'm not sure how it's gonna happen, but
I think him coming back to life is going to be the only effect of them finding the progenitor technology. I think they're going to use it to bring him back, and then somehow it's going to get destroyed.
yeah, I feel like this whole progenitor tech thing is gonna be the most least important thing about the season.
Well, I mean, as I ranted to you in a previous podcast episode, if the progenitor technology is found intact and allowed to remain intact, it dramatically changes everything about Star Trek for all future shows set after Discovery. And Discovery has already changed so much, like just the way transporters and spore drives and phasers work. And now they want to change how people die and live.
Yeah, I don't think it won't be what they're expecting, or it won't. Yeah, basically, ultimately, it won't be what they're expecting.
The progenitor technology was the friends you made along the way.
Yes. And speaking of friends along the way, we should probably and bad segues, we should probably jump ahead to Labyrinths as Tilly, Stamets, and Adira discover the clue that they have is a library card for a library that's hiding in the Badlands.
Yeah, I had to go back and rewatch the end of the Erigah episode to understand how Book's empathy played a role in this, because they knew where the library had been over the last centuries. By the way the library moves around all a lot reminds me of the seed ship that Nan left Discovery to supervise. So apparently this is just like a thing that a lot of people do. Anyway, so I thought that just by knowing where the library had been over so many data points, they could extrapolate its next data point. But then I realized, like, oh, they had to narrow it down to a region of space with a lot of ionic energy. That could be anywhere, but in the context of where the library has been, that provides it with context. So they did need both. But again, it's just, I kind of feel like with shows being only 10 episodes, not only do they not have a lot of downtime and character moments where they can play poker, but I also feel like they rush through some explanations. Like
Yeah.
how bringing government works or how they found the library. And sometimes I need to go back and be like, wait, that happened fast. What happened?
Also, they really the how much people in this century, or at least, yeah, how much people in this century are obsessed or know about the Dominion War, a war that happened 600 years ago. That tells me, I mean, it loosely tells me that apparently no major wars outside the temporal wars happened between the Dominion
Yeah.
War and the current era, because they all seem to have this offhand knowledge of this war that happened 800 years ago.
Yeah, it's just those two.
Um,
Which reminds me, when they had the time bug and Burnham went back into the past and she went on the bridge to try to convince people that she was really her. I wish they had used a line something like, I promise you I'm not a changeling. And everybody else would be like, what's a changeling? And she's like, right, that hasn't happened yet. I wish they had just done something, because so many people accuse her of being a shapeshifter. They use that
That's right.
word.
That's right.
And I wish that she had used the word changeling and got blank stares back. Oh well.
All right, Labyrinths.
Yes.
We begin on the Breen Primarch or the Primarch Rune's ship. They're giving a funeral for Locke. And they're basically like, he defied us in life, but he has honor in death. And Maul is the weird one out here and promises, hey, we can bring him back, if we go find this progenitor technology. And Rune is like, okay. He's angry about it.
He doesn't like somebody else calling the shots.
Yeah. Again, that makes sense, I guess. The lack of any kind of markings that's differing of different kinds of people. I mean, it's gotta be really confusing. Because like I couldn't tell you who was who. Like clearly there were some very important people there, and Maul seemed to know, but like even Star Wars will give different colorings or badges to stormtroopers who are important. Some kind of signifier who is who. So like, is this person that kind of is listening to Maul? Is it always the same person? Or is it a different one? And if she's getting a few people on her side, like it was just wish there was more markers to get me to go, oh yeah, she is getting through to them all. And I just didn't know if she was getting through to them all or getting through to one, like wheeling them out, because she was kind of turning everyone against the Primarch over the episode.
I assumed it was just one.
Yeah, and I really couldn't tell.
I mean, he was always in close proximity to her. He treated her gently when he had to physically move her. He looked at her longer than was necessary, like almost like sort of a pity or empathy. Yeah, I just assumed that all those mannerisms were coming from one person, but it did make me wonder, who is that one person?
Right.
Like, is
And
this somehow Locke in disguise? And I would not have been surprised at the end of the episode when those two, her and this unnamed Breen, sort of joined forces to turn everybody else to their side. Like she looked right at him and said, like, "Long live the Scion." And I expected him to like sort of take off his mask and be like, "Yeah, I am the Scion."
you're not allowed like part of me did go, is this somehow Locke as well? I had the exact same thought, even though it didn't make sense. Like, why is this one being different? And like ultimately it means it wasn't important, but I didn't know that at the time. Uh, and I wish there was something that would have just, like I said, show me like, is this guy a a viceroy? Is this guy, a captain under the Breen? Who is this guy compared to the other ones? Why is he listening? But I mean, it's something. Is he just a high-ranking official? But they all dress exactly the same, but they somehow know each other apart.
Right. I assume that they have a way to tell each other apart, which doesn't
Yeah.
help us as the audience, but it does imply that this is not Locke, because if it was, everybody else would
Oh,
know.
yeah. His body is there apparently. I mean, that's why I'm like, my brain went to that lock for a split second, but that doesn't make any sense unless it was some wool over the audience's eye too.
Mhm.
She gets the Breen to agree to go find the progenitor tech for now. And here's where we get Archivist Hyrel, my favorite character. Now, Reed's discovery as they get to the Badlands, and she goes on to like, we have a very happy spiel. I'm going to tell you the whole spiel about how to get here, and I just love her attitude, her mannerisms. It wasn't just the scene that made me fall in love with her. Um, Michael cuts her short just before she's going to tell him about how to get to the Badlands or get through there. And they start going there, and of course, they get the crap beat out of them by the Badlands.
Are these the Cardassian Badlands?
These are the same ones from Deep Space Nine.
They just never call them the Cardassian Badlands in this episode.
I don't remember. I think even in DS9, they mostly just said the Badlands.
Am I making that up then?
Maybe they are in Cardassian, but I think if they ever called them that, it didn't stick to memory. For me, it's always just the Badlands in my head, but possibly
Okay,
because here in North Dakota we have the Badlands as well, so it's very much like
true. Yeah, the Badlands are a segment of space between the United Federation of Planets and the Cardassian Union.
Mhm.
I think somebody somewhere called them the Cardassian Badlands, and I didn't just make it up.
So that part
Interesting.
stuck to you, but for me, it was just the Badlands.
Yep.
To get the crap beat out of them until they realize how to get through there. Again, we have Gallo and Asha. I wrote the names down this time on the bridge instead of Detmer and Oshikun. Where are they? Who knows? Same place hanging out with Saru.
We're probably not getting them back this season.
Maybe by the end. Because they flew some people back for reshoots. So hey, maybe we'll get them by the end and going, hey, we were here all along. We were just in the bar. Um they get to the Badlands. We see it's called the Eternal Gallery and Archive is the building here. It's hiding out in a little oasis, lowercase, in the Badlands. And it's just a gorgeous station or building on whatever it is. It's gorgeous. I loved it. Um, And here, they talk to Hyrel again. She's all her happy, bubbly self, and she says, "Hey, we detected you got a someone from Quishon aboard. We've got an artifact for them if they want to come get it." And Michael's like, "Okay, I'll go tell them." Here we have a little awkward conversation because Michael still doesn't know how to talk to the book right now. Um, I actually watched this scene 3 times. Like, did I miss something? I kept like it can sometimes I'll get distracted and I have to rewatch the scene. And I was like, and that happened at first. And I rewatched it. Like, did I miss something? And I did it, and I knew I was watching it, but I'm like, did I miss something? So I rewound it even further. And no, I didn't. It was just Michael being awkward. I just kept thinking to myself, did I miss something? And no, I didn't.
Was there some part of that exchange that seemed off or unnatural to you?
The end of the conversation, it just cut off. Uh, I don't remember the exact wordings, but it was just cut off, and she's like, didn't know how to finish the sentence or the conversation.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was just not a normal conversation between two people, even on Star Trek. Like how people will just end a scene mid-sentence or walk away without saying goodbye. It wasn't one of those. It was just a da da da. Yeah, and the conversation just ended. It was very awkward, and it was intended to be. I kept thinking I was missing something until I was realized I wasn't.
Interesting.
That plays into the rest of the story a little bit later. Um, they get onto the library here, the archive. What a gorgeous building. Did you have any reaction at first, just seeing the interior?
I mean, I've seen the TV show The Librarians
Uh-huh.
and the trilogy of movies leading up to it, so it seemed consistent with fantastic libraries we've seen in cinema before.
See, I always loved those, and I thought it was gorgeous. Apparently, this is a real building in Toronto, the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library.
Huh.
Does not have nearly as many floors, but if you Google the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library, you will see a number of pictures, and you'll oh, this is exactly where they filmed.
Oh, yeah. The thumbnail that Google shows, that's exactly where they shot this.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. I'll be in Toronto in September. I'll have to go there.
You might be able to go there. I think it's on a university or a university campus. I don't know which one. But you can do the Google or Bings or DuckDuckGo for that information. Here we get introduced to Hyrel in person, archivist Hyrel. They tell her that Breen are coming, and she has this cheeky little line about how they're like, "Hey, we need to go. It's quick. The Breen are coming," and they're pissed. And she's like, basically says like, "We don't send people to the dungeon, but we do have an oubliette." Uh, which is a fun little cheeky line. Her little humor is great, and her little line to Book when she goes to the viewing room to show him the artifact, and she says, "Is your name really Book? How fun to have a book visit me in the library for a change." It was so cute.
It was cute.
I love her so much. She's my new favorite character. Get her on the show more often. Uh, we got a cool little thing of him getting a part of the world tree that Koi John had. It was a real touching moment. Who knows? Maybe he'll go plant it somewhere else.
I really appreciated that she offered to let him take it with him because our own world, our own society is rife with museums that have artifacts that belong to other cultures. You know, like with our modern sensibilities, we can go back and look at the opening scene of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he says that belongs in a museum. We're like, no, it belongs to the culture that created it.
Maybe in a museum there.
Right. We shouldn't just be plundering these native lands. And now that's not what happened with the library. Somebody donated this to the library, and we presume, although we don't know, that it came through the correct channels from somebody from Quezon. So she's not really obligated to give it back to that culture like she would be if it had been plundered or pilfered, but she still did it. And I thought that was a really elegant and classy move on her part.
Yeah, it's just like you can take it if you want, and if you do, just let us know what happens to it. We were just like for our archive. That's cool. Do what you want with it.
She said this has been in a place of honor for the last year or two, and you don't just give away things that are in a place of honor. Like I donated, and Alamogordo ET cartridge to the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. It is on display. It has its own little display in the museum. And I wouldn't be able to just go up and say, hey, I want that back. Like they
Uh-huh.
would say, no, you donated it to us. You signed over the paperwork. Like it's ours now. And also that would be a dick move for me to make anyway, to ask for it
Right.
back.
I saw a
So
comment along the lines of like the British History Museum or whatever is sweating right now after seeing this episode.
yes, exactly. So yeah, I liked it. And it also made me appreciate this character more. Rael, is that her name?
Hi, Rel.
Hyrel, thank you. I appreciated not only how she treated Book, but also how she responded to the Breen and how she behaved under pressure and in crisis in general. Because before then, I was not a huge fan of hers.
Really?
I found her very silly, like almost like comic relief. I didn't think that she appreciated the gravity of the situation. Like, oh, we can make a little detour to look at all these manuscripts if you want. And Burnham's like, no, we're trying to find the technology that invents life. Let's focus on that. And even when she was giving her spiel while the Discovery was being literally torn apart by the Cardassian Badlands, I thought she might be AI. I thought she might be a recording that just was completely oblivious of context and priority. And finally, when she herself was put in danger, she responded accordingly and she helped Discovery in the way that they needed help. And so I respected and appreciated her by the end of the episode.
Yeah, her reaction to me in the Badlands when they're like, "Hey, we're kind of busy right now," and she's trying to talk to them. She's like, she's probably seen this 100 times of captains being all uppity about it. Things, and she's like, "They'll figure it out in a minute." Just like this is old hat. They'll figure it out. I'll wait here until they're ready. Very different
Yeah.
reactions to the same character. Where I loved her, and I could see why you felt the way you do. Um,
Yeah. Like if I was Michael Burnham piloting the Discovery, I would not be appreciating Hyrel and the way that she was coming across. So I guess that's the character I empathized with more in this episode was Burnham.
yeah, Hybrel stands at the Primark, which I love. And Michael touches the book. They find the book and goes into our mind palace.
Yeah, the technology that sends her there, I think they called it a neurolytic beam. And I went back and I looked at the Memory Alpha entry for the TNG episode, The Inner Light, to find out is that what that technology was called. And I couldn't find that specific technology name referenced, but it seems like the result is nearly identical.
Similar thing, a Betazoid version of the similar idea.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think of that. Yeah. We go in here, and of course, it's at the library set. And there is Book waiting for her in a Time Lord outfit, archivist outfit.
Why couldn't it have been Tilly?
Such a key line. I like how he later adds, like, she would have been just as annoying. As Michael has to try to figure out what she's doing in this labyrinth. She puts pieces together. It's a maze. But the book, she goes like, "Hey, first I need to find out history. That must be important." She goes and reads up on the Dominion War, Mirror Universe, a bunch of things, and she's like, "Am I even on the right path?" And this version of Book is like, "No." She's so pissed off at him.
And yet, Book says everything here is here for a reason. And I feel like sometimes that reason was to be a red herring.
Uh-huh. Michael invented it, so it must be important to her. But all these things led, like, there were all these red herrings led to her realizing that she just needed to uh be honest with herself about her vulnerabilities. We can get that to a minute here. She's going through this palace. She looks up the history. She looks at a map. It's a maze. We get a little Pac-Man map. That's the first thing I thought of. There's a bunch of little power pellets and what are they? Super pellets or the bigger ones? The power. I haven't seen anybody talk about that at all. It looked like Pac-Man used to me, like a little nod to it, but whatever. While she's in here, Raynor and Book are like, oh, and Culber are over here now, trying to do some medical things on her, and they're like, "Hey, we can't cut her off, or she could die." They shoot, and this is, of course, the Breen arrive, and they have to hide Discovery. Commander Reese is in charge. Actually, Discovery has a lot of commanders. I noticed, even in rewatching season 2 and 3, they have a lot of commanders.
There's Reese, there's Stamets, there's Reno, there's Rayner. Anybody else?
I think half the bridge crew are, except for like most of the good share of the bridge crew are even commanders.
Hmm.
Unless they're just saying commander instead of lieutenant for some reason. I think, yeah. But anyway, that's just neither here nor there. Just there's a lot of commanders on that ship. I roused into the prime. Oh yeah, the Primarch beams some Breen aboard before the shields go up on the Oasis, or on the library, and then they start getting their super drill to go drill through the shields, which is actually a scary effect. Like, no, how come no one's done this before, really?
Yeah, it was interesting that apparently Discovery has never seen this technology before, and yet they immediately had a name for it. They're like, they're using shield tunneling technology. We've never seen that. I was like, you've never seen it. How do you know what it is?
And there must have been a hypothetical kind of thing before.
There was one other piece of technology that I want to ask you about, Sabriel, because I suspect that you have paid more attention to this detail than I have. When the main crew was on the library ship and the Breen showed up, and I'm sorry, who was commanding Discovery at that point?
Commander Reese.
Reese. Yeah, and Reese says, "Oh no, the Breen are coming, and we can't cloak." I forgot Discovery had a cloaking device.
Right? Yeah, it does.
But did you know this?
Yeah, because they used it a couple times in seasons 3 and 4.
They do. Okay. So I know they haven't explained this, and I'm not expecting them to explain it, but I'd really be curious to know what happened in the last 900 years with the Treaty of Algernon.
When the Romulans are no longer existed.
I mean, I guess the Romulans are now merged with the Vulcans, but have we seen in this 31st century Klingons yet?
No. Except maybe in the background, but nothing. We have not heard much about the Empire at all, if anything.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because I don't know if there's a canon explanation for why Klingons and Romulans both have birds of prey and cloaking devices, but I assume that the treaty applied sort of to both of them. But I guess you're right, it is mostly Romulan, especially in Deep Space Nine, where they lent them one cloaking device that was supposed to be supervised by a Romulan who disappeared after like an episode.
Yeah, same actress who played Seska, if I recall correctly.
Yep, that's correct.
Romulan Seska. Margaret. Nope, it's gone.
Was it? I don't know.
Anyway, I mean, they got fast and loose with it even on DS9.
Martha.
There it was an M.
Martha Hackett.
Yes. So yeah, maybe after. I mean, it's been 800 years. They're still obsessed with the Dominion War. There's a lot of timeline where it's like, okay, sure. Anything can happen now. Breen arrive, recharge Discovery. They hide. We had a cute little scene with Reno, Adira, and Stamets trying to figure out how to disrupt the drill beam. And Reno's like, I love this moment where you guys you come to the same answer at the same time. Oh, here it comes, and there it is.
Yep.
I love how Reno makes a reference to Lower Decks. She says she partied on or with Hysperians. They are the Ren Fair planet from Lower Decks that the engineer is from.
Yep.
And mentions they know how to party. So that's their connection to Lower Decks finally.
Oh, this reminds me of a Voyager reference in this episode where they mentioned a book on Talaxian hairstyles.
Yes.
So the Beta Z scientist looked this up when he visited the library, which was like 800 years or 600 years ago. And this was, I mean, the progenitor technology was found shortly after like the era of TNG, right?
Yeah, the timeline's a little weird for me too. I thought the same thing.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, so there's one Talaxian, and his name is Neelix, and he never even made it back to the Alpha Quadrant. But I guess, as you know better than I do, because you've read the books, Voyager was sent back to the Delta Quadrant, and so maybe they brought back a bunch of books.
And Betazoids live a long time? I don't know, because it would have been TNG era, so it very, very well could have been a book that Voyager brought back. Maybe they had it on ebook, or whatever. So yeah, plausible.
Yeah, but I think I totally think it's possible, but the fact that they chose that particular topic gave me pause.
I just know that one a reference to Voyager. Here we go, which I'm all for. Book and Rayner start taking out Primarch Rune's soldiers. At this point, Primarch doesn't realize Discovery's been here yet until it sees some body cam footage and see Book and Commander Rayner beating him up. Like, Federation's here. At the same time, all this is going on. All challenges the Primarch, ends up fighting him and killing him and becoming the leader of this ship, at least, if not this faction.
Yeah, that
You're
was
shaking
weird.
your head here for our viewers or
No,
listeners.
you got it completely correct. I just thought it was weird.
Well, this means that some of this crew does believe in law, and were scared. Maybe they were scared of Rune, whatever, because they recognize her claim to Locke's claim.
Or they recognize, I don't know. I mean, they did like the inverse of a Erigah saying like, I promise I will not attack the library. I'm going to attack the library.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and there must be Breen who in other factions or elsewhere in this faction who would recognize how dishonorable that is. And for all the crewmen on the ship to go along with it and to just say, I was just following orders. I don't know. I feel like this would have a long-term negative repercussion on their career to go along with a leader who's going to disrespect this inverted Erigah.
Yeah, it feels like that point was a turning point for a lot of them. It's like, hey, we do have some honor.
Which is why I say that this captain was an idiot and to not see this coming.
He was the stupid cartoon villain. He was not a good character.
Nope. And now he's dead. He
And
wasn't
now
even
he's
like
dead.
he even he lost his weapon. Like it was so weird the way that Maul did it. I thought she fell at first, and then like she kicked him and got his weapon and shot him. I'm like, really? That's it? Like he loses his weapon that easily? You know, he must have been promoted because of who he knew or who he slept with, as opposed to his facility at hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, yeah. It was just very quick. You know what? I saw a comment like she's acting the hell out of this scene, and everyone else, like, and the Primarch is just so like not.
I'm not a fan of Maul's acting, to be honest. I feel
No?
like she just like is biting off every syllable, and she's so angry, and she's got her head down, she's glowering at people, and I'm like, is this what you think angry looks like? Come on. Anyway.
So she's leader of the breed now, or at least this faction, or at least this ship. Michael is in the Mind Palace, almost out of time. As they start shutting down around her, if she's in here too long, she'll just die. She figures out the solution is to just work through her feelings. The clue was basically like, how can you be a protector when you don't even know yourself of this technology? How can you protect this technology if you don't know yourself? Comes to the realization of what her vulnerabilities and her relationships. And they go, all right, there you go. That was it. She's like, what? Gets out and finds the clue was hidden in a crystal in a different room the entire time. And the Primarch is oh yeah, kind of forgot about this little part, beating the crap out of Discovery as it comes back. And Michael's like, hold it. And basically does this cool little thing where she makes them think they got destroyed by jumping at the last second. But because of that, they don't land near enough where they need to go. They have to do some repairs, and they find out they're gonna have about an hour of leeway time before the Breen ship can make it to the same place that they're gonna go to.
Except she knows how to get into it.
Yeah. That's right. Mind Palace book said, "Hey, we've got one more clue for you. We're gonna show you off camera, so you can reveal it dramatically."
I think that's the only reason that she was willing to give them the map is because the map wasn't everything.
Right. 100%. And yeah, that happened. You know what? Of all the criticisms of these two episodes and the one note of the villain, I really had fun watching these. Like especially the second one, the Labyrinths one. I was like really into it when I was watching it.
So I'd like to talk about Burnham's realization before the lights went out.
Okay.
She was talking about how she's afraid of letting people down, of failing. And not just of failing because the mission is the most important thing to her. She's afraid that nobody will like her if she fails, if she is a failure. That is a totally reasonable fear. I'm not in the sense that like people won't like her, but I mean like people have this fear. And I can understand that somebody would have it. But I don't feel like this has been a through line in this character's development over the last 5 years. I don't think we've seen this manifested or expressed a lot. And if it's that deeply held a secret, then maybe we would not have. But it reminded me of the series finale for Picard, where his son supposedly allowed himself to be Borgified because he was so lonely and so isolated and just wanted to be connected to people. And he's like, this is the way I can do it. I can reach out to everybody. I can let them know that they're not alone. And that was the first time in that season of 10 episodes of this character that I saw him express loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like these characters are bringing up their fears only when it's convenient to the plot at the last minute. And this is something that Discovery has done time and again, which is develop a character only at the very moment it's relevant to the plot, like Ariam before she died. And I would really like to have seen this sooner so that when Burnham said it, I'm like, oh, this puts into context a lot of other things you've been doing in the last 5 years. Now I understand why you did that. Whereas her revelation in this episode, I don't feel like it explains anything.
No, I would agree with that. Well, we have seen her struggling with something, especially with book, the entire season. Was it this feeling of failing? Like I could see that as the overarching thing from the very beginning, a little bit, but it hasn't been a through line. Like she's working and struggling through this. You're 100% right.
Yeah, if Book had broken up with her and she was like, if I can just do well on this mission, he'll realize what a great person I am and he'll take me back. Well, that would be very petty, but it's also not what's happening here. So that disappointed me. That's all I got.
Yeah, no, I can see that entirely. I it was emotional, but was it earned kind of thing?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just maybe because I've talked about this before, how Picard and Discovery I think are better as binge shows. Is this something that's been there this entire season, and because of the nature of weekly, I'm just not picking up on it as easily. It's very possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But even when I've been going through these older seasons, I have been much more entertained by Discovery on a second run through than I have been on the first.
Interesting.
I mean, like season 2, I remember it being the Captain Pike show the entire time.
And
Reality is, it's not. Like he was barely there. I mentioned this before. Even season 3 here, I'm watching. We're 4 episodes in. Still haven't found the Federation. My brain, the entire season is we got to solve the problem with the burn. Burn the burn, the burn, the burn, the burn. 4 episodes done, and it has barely been a thing other than this is the thing that happened. And so so our brains like make up these things, and it's clearly showing like no, that's not what it was. So maybe when the season's over, I'll pick up on more that. But it's a shame, right? Like they did their best to go last time or previously on to Star Trek Discovery to show us what's going to be important this week, and I don't remember that being a thing. Like,
yeah, I would say, well, as I pointed out before, I think all Star Trek is pretty good. I don't think there's bad Star Trek, but there is Star Trek that is worse than other Trek. So it's all relative. I was intrigued to hear you say how much you enjoyed Erigah and Labyrinths because I thought Erigah was the worst episode of this season.
oh, I have to think about that. I'm not going to take up time right now to vote, but I haven't always thought about that. Like the Strange New Worlds, I had one immediately. That was the purple lotus, the Lotus Eaters one.
Right.
This one, nothing has stricken me as the worst yet.
Yeah, for
But
me, it
so
was this one. The only other note I have that we didn't get to, I think it was in Labyrinths, but it may have been in Erigah, doesn't matter, is that somebody referred to the Breen as gelatinous a-holes.
Oh yeah, Rainer did. It was in Labyrinths in the body cam footage.
And you and I were previously trying to figure out what are these two faces they have, and we still don't know the answer to that, but hearing the word gelatinous, I if I felt like that was evidence of their lack of solidity. That's not a word, but yeah, it sort of explained something for me. So I was glad to hear that. That's all.
Glad to hear Rainer's racism.
I wouldn't say that, but yes, I guess that could be racism. So maybe I'm not glad I heard it.
No, but it helped. It does set the scene of what kind of person this is, what kind of he's gone through. Like we are not always our best selves. And he has gone through a lot. I'm not excusing it, but we could see where he's coming from, right?
Okay, so what if you take a whole bunch of Breen and you throw them into like a Star Wars trash compactor? Would you come out with a gelatinous cube? Is that where gelatinous cubes come from?
They're Breen, yep.
It's like Soylent's made of people. Gelatinous cubes are Breen. It's Breen. Anyway.
You wouldn't understand because they're nothing like humans.
No. Totally alien. Incomprehensible. They don't eat their vegetables.
You know what? I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm looking at the episode list here. I would agree. Erigah is so far the worst episode of the season, but for me, it's not a low worst. It's just my lowest ranking one.
So you enjoyed it?
I still enjoyed it. But it was probably my lowest rated one.
Got it.
I was looking at the episode list.
So this means we have only 2 episodes left in all of Discovery, the entire series. Next episode, do you want to make any predictions for like how far you think they'll get in each episode?
Oh, it's a 2-parter.
Oh. Are they going to air at the same time?
I don't know. They're not going to do that. There's 2 different dates, 23rd and 30th.
Okay.
They have different names too. So take your part for 2-parter. My prediction for the next episode is it's going to end on a cliffhanger of the Breen having the upper hand on the Federation.
Well, season 2 ended on a 2-parter, and the first part was all talk, and the second part was all action. But I don't really see how they can do that this time.
So what's going to happen in these last 2 episodes? 3/4 of the last 2 episodes are going to be having to do with this and the plot of the whole season. And the last half hour or so of Discovery is going to be wrapping things up for the entire series. We're all going to be on the USS Federation having a party like we opened the season with. Tilly is going to have her reveal of what she's learned so she can teach her students to have them come back or be all one unit. And Stamets is going to have his legacy. Hopefully that does not mean he dies in some heroic death. But he's probably going to be some major component of why the progenitor tech is important.
Culber is going to find religion.
Yeah, Culber. He's been going through some things too. Well, not this season, but or these 2 episodes. But or he's just going to come through that. Adira is going to go hang out with if you want to say the actor's actual name, Gray, and not be a couple, but still be together. And Michael and Brooke are going to be together. And Oshikun and Detmer are going to get married. And maybe the ISS Enterprise will have some important thing to play. I don't think so. And there we go. And Maul and Locke will be together, even if it's only for a few moments before Maul dies as well.
That's a lot.
Maul might take Locke's body through a wormhole to get to the Gamma Quadrant, where she wanted to go in the first place, and put him to rest there as she retires, or dies there as well.
All that in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Well, until then,
hit it.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes and keep your hailing frequencies open by following us on Twitter @TransporterLock or subscribing to our podcast and email newsletter at transporterlock.com.